Yes, welcome into the Devil's Puck Luck podcast, where, of course, we are your host over here, Adam Armbrecht, covering the Brooklyn Nets on the Locked On Nets podcast, covering the New York Football Giants on the One Giant podcast. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin, your friend, and 20-year season ticket holder, Danny McDonough. How we feeling, my guy, as I did the post-game lift on
you did great, by the
game
way.
one.
You were so even-keeled. Like, you talked through it, where I'm emotional leaving that game. Like, oh, man. It was, you know why it was the most brutal, Adam? Because it was 75-25 Devils fans. You know what I mean?
That's the ratio I called for, by the way.
It was. It definitely was at the game. And it seemed like the Ranger fans were in the lower bowl more, especially on their attacking side twice.
Visually in the corner, watching the game on TV, I was like, a lot of blue. So I was pleasantly surprised when fans there were saying, hey, the Devils showed up. The fan base showed up.
We definitely did. We definitely did. The problem is we wwere so bad. Down 4-0.
You really mitigate the value of having the fan base turn up.
Yeah. And so the problem was, at the end of the game, most Devil fans essentially left when there was 5-6 minutes left in the game.
And listen, well, I was about to say you can understand that given the performance and given the fact that you knew the game was certainly lost, right? You don't anticipate a comeback in the third period, as we've seen from the Devils before, but the script was there, right? I also would say, especially in playoff hockey, I do think it's important, fan base, stick around. Like, you know what I mean? Give your team the support. Be there for the Jack Hughes goal off the penalty, right? Clear path. It will at least get on the board, which I do think is important. They said it on the live broadcast on TV. Like, hey, you want your best player to get that taste of a playoff goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And break through against Shesterkin, who had an absolutely excellent game. But let's talk about the fact. So you said I was very even-keeled watching that game, getting through it. The Devils lose 5-1. The comments after the game from Devils players and the coaching staff was, hey, like, we've played this team in the regular season. We know we can go toe-to-toe with them. It is an introduction to playoff hockey for so many of these guys. The debate that you and I were having via text message was, did the Devils just totally get dumpstered in this game? Or are there things that you look at and say, hey, we can build off of certain instances where they were having success. We can clean up certain things, and we'll discuss stat lines here in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of that game was pretty atrocious. I'm going to...
Okay.
And we disagree a little on that. I know. For me, it's the first 5 minutes we can agree that the Devils did play really well coming out of the gate. They were excited. You could see that they were excited. They were playing very physical. They were up and down the ice. Then, unfortunately, bad turnover in the middle of the ice. Tarasenko, who's a goal scorer, natural goal scorer.
On a line change. Which we talked about coming in.
And it was a late line change, if you saw, too. And it was frustrating. And it kind of deflated the crowd, and is exactly what we didn't need at the Rock. It sucked. But we were down 1. That's it.
Yeah.
Then we talk about the power plays. This is the big conversation that we were talking about. The Devils were 0 for 4 with 0 shots on the power play. You will not win any hockey games against any team if you are 0 for 4 on a power play in the playoffs. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
So we're going to get to that here in a minute. But just in terms of where I think we disagreed or we were debating about it. You said the first 5, which I think was true. Devils came out playing pretty fast. They got power play opportunities, right? They had the Rangers chasing them a bit there. They don't convert. But then I'll go ahead. This we were discussing was second period. Now, I'll let you explain, but the Devils, to me, came out and did control the puck for the first half of the second period. Again, not getting their shots on target, taking shots but missing wide, etc. There's a lot of things that the Rangers did incredibly well in this one, but you didn't view those first 10 minutes as being really successful so much as the Rangers basically sitting back and saying, we'll prove that we need to be concerned about what you're going to do here.
I appreciate your positive outlook on that, but I think that the Devils were playing the Rangers game. I think the Rangers were...
Oh, I agree with that, by the way.
Yeah, I think that the Rangers were essentially playing the neutral zone trap. They were playing on the blue line. They were not allowing the Devils to get any entry into the Devils' offensive zone. And, I think that the Devils had a lot of chances, a lot of potential chances, but the block shots by the Rangers were absolutely incredible because they were eliminating the middle of the ice where the Devils are going to skate quickly. They're going to make plays. The Devils were too cute with their pass attempts. They were just too cute. They were trying to get...
See, and again, this is where we disagree again.
Really?
The big instance for me was, and overall, obviously, you can't lose a game 5-1 and say, I think the Devils outplayed the Rangers, bounce of a puck here. But you talked about it specifically with Jack Hughes. I thought, and to me, it's to the credit of the Rangers. When he had the puck entering into the final zone, I thought that it was arguably, now you can say too cute making the extra pass versus taking the shot. But at one point you said trying to do too much. Like, I thought everything was correct that the Devils were trying to accomplish, but there was a timid execution to it. So rather than being a half a skate ahead of the Rangers on plays, it was almost like, and next up, I'm going to try to get that pass over there. And it allowed the Rangers to play the lanes.
So maybe we're almost talking about the same thing. It's
right.
the timidness and the uncertainty of where you're going to pass the puck,
Yeah.
So, and that's why the passes weren't crisp. That's why it weren't tape to tape.
Cookie crisp. You remember those?
Yeah, they're delicious.
Cut the roof of your mouth.
But listen, it sucked as a Devils fan being there. It sucked watching it as a Devils fan. And it was frustrating. But again, it's one game. And it's irritating to me to see Devils fans almost like giving up on their team.
Okay.
And that's what really upsets me. And we'll get to that a little later because I don't want to jump away from that. Let's talk more about the terrible play of Miles Wood, which was absolutely
okay. Well, hold on. Okay, yes.
The fourth line played bad.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about that more in potential lineup changes.
Adjustments.
Yeah, but it's that Miles Wood penalty was so bad in the first period that I was shocked.
I talked about that in real time coming out of that post game. It just, in an instance where you have, and I'm not sure who the other Devil that's there in between. And by the way, in between your own defensive zone and the goal, if you're the Rangers, that Miles Wood, he goes down. I get it. Like, you feel like, man, I just lost an opportunity maybe to gain possession in the final zone. But it was just such a careless, sloppy. There was no danger. There's no danger on that play. Nothing's going to happen. Get up, recover, reset yourself. Bad game overall for him. And we'll get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about just statistics of this game from a high level, and one of the things was, you mentioned, playing that neutral zone, letting the Devils try to come to them. Hey, prove that you can get home on us here and on Shesterkin before we really worry about what you are. The Rangers it took them 11 minutes without a single shot on net. There is a balance of, like, the Devils getting a little more, comfortable defensively, playing a little bit smarter hockey that I thought was worth noting. A big thing for me, though, when you look back at the statistics is, you said faceoffs. Devils accomplished that. Narrowly won at 52-48. Mm-hmm. But you accurately pointed out it was the most important faceoffs that you didn't win.
Yeah, the timely faceoffs we weren't winning. It just, and Lindy Ruff, to his credit, when we were down 2-0, 3-0, he was putting Haula and McLeod on the lines with the top guys to try to win those faceoffs. And they were winning some of those faceoffs. But you're talking in the big moments of those games. We're down 1-0. The power play, we're not winning faceoffs. There's no consistency at all in the offensive zone on the power plays. We lost this game on special teams, and we lost this game in the first period because we were down 2-0, and we didn't really show the grit that I was hoping that we would show. Physically, yes. Board play and forechecking were not there. They just weren't there. We were getting beat to every puck. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to nerves. We keep talking about nerves and the inexperience of the team, but you only can use that for one game. This game is what it is.
I don't even know if you can use it for an entire game so much as you say, hey, I'll give you the first period, right? And you mentioned it there. You come out of the first period down 2-0 and having 2 power plays that you don't convert on. Another big thing for me when we look inside the stat lines, 13 giveaways, 13 takeaways for the Devils. On the flip side, it's 7-3 for the Rangers, right? So it's this, we know, the sloppiness, right? Because it wasn't like the Rangers were forcing the mistakes.
Right.
This is the Devils saying, go ahead. And we knew that coming in. You could not make those type of errors knowing the experience of the Rangers and that they're going to capitalize and they're going to punish you on it. That to me is like, inside of that stat line, I can say you forced a lot of takeaways. You played well in that regard, but you have to clean up the other side of it. And I just think that it is the nature of what this team is in some ways. And I want to be willing to chalk it up to the nerves of that first period of that first game of the playoffs.
I think so much is based on nerves. I really do. Going back and looking at the tape and looking at the highlights, going over YouTube, breakdowns of analysts breaking everything down. I almost went over it way too much, like to the point where I'm almost trying to overanalyze it.
And don't overdo it, right?
Yeah, and I think it gets to the point where I got to stop myself and be like, you know what? We were just gripping the stick too tight. Every player was. Jack Hughes, again, was trying to skate through the middle of the ice, and I understand that he wants to spark this team. I 100% get it. Some of the
by the way, it's that attempt at the spark that gets the clear path penalty and gets the goal.
Right. And another thing too is we were physical and we were getting into scrums. Is what I want to see too. And there was bad, by the way, there was bad penalty calls on both teams in this game. The officiating wasn't consistent. The officiating wasn't consistent for either team. I'm okay. I'm here. Listen, I'm here. But it wasn't, and I understand that a lot of NHL fans, Devils and Rangers fans were complaining.
Sure.
When you're a fan of a team, you're going to say that you were screwed no matter what. It's just how it goes.
By the way, and this is just like a peek behind the curtain, man, for when I cover the Brooklyn Nets, when I cover the Giants, like penalties, refereeing, it's the last thing that I discuss when it comes to wins or losses or how the team performs, because that to me is like the last resort for a team that feels like they were outmatched or outplayed. And I'm not saying specifically in this game one, but in general.
Right, unless it's something egregious and you see like a kicking motion into the net for a game-winning goal and they just don't call it.
Yeah, it's all good. Those moments happen. But again, like especially over the course of an 82-game season, that stuff comes out in the wash ultimately.
Well, look at the Toronto Maple Leafs game when we had the winning streak and it was snapped at home, and everybody was throwing stuff on the ice. Those were borderline calls that could have gone either way. I disagree that I thought one of them should have been a goal, and two of them I understand weren't.
So now we're going to talk about adjustments and ask specific questions around the power play and around the goaltending matchup that we knew was going to be critical in this series. But to tie a bow on this portion of it, you feel like this was a 90% bad game for the New Jersey Devils in game one. And I feel like I can look at certain chunks and say, and we'll get into the power play, but I can look at it and say, it really is just an attention to detail, not turning it over. And I'm not saying I'm not painting a picture where, they were a couple of bounces away from being up 3-2 in this game. No, but I do think there is the world where this was a 4-2 game and you could go away from it feeling a little bit better. Big part of that to me is obviously getting on the scoreboard early in this one. And I'm specifically I'm going to press you on the idea of, you said, hey, the lack of board play. But when you talk about playing into the Rangers' hands, I like the physicality. I like getting into the scrums. You're not backing down from those fights. But I can look at that and say, that's not the Devils' style. That's buying into that benefits the Rangers in a lot of different ways. Not just getting rattled and not playing your game, but guess what? We're not a big enough team. So if you're going to go for 40, 50 minutes of a game trying to play at that same physical level, you're going to burn out before they do. And I can see that being a factor going forward, not necessarily just in the game.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I still think no matter what, you got to be physical.
You can't.
It does. The Rangers are a physical team, a bigger team. Trouba hit Nico, had a nice hit on Nico in the corner. They're going to do that more than we're going to do that in the sense of open ice hits.
Yes.
That's just going to happen.
Yes.
The board play and the physicality come hand in hand.
Always gets choked up when he talks about board play. It's a thing.
The board play and physicality is a must, because those dirty goals that we talk about, where we're throwing the puck in front of the net,
got to break through.
It's going to happen, and if we keep doing that and we keep being persistent with that, it will happen. And the fact that we lost the board play, in my opinion, against the Rangers, which a 5-1 defeat, obviously we did, they got to be better. It's just overall they got to be better. To me, 85, 90%, I think it was just a bad game. And a lot of that is the special teams. We were so bad. I haven't seen the Devils this bad on special teams all year. And that's a huge factor. And when you're playing someone like Igor Shesterkin, who's in goal for the Rangers, who is top 5, that's not debatable for anybody in the NHL.
No.
He's a top 5 goalie, period. And in a lot of cases, people think he's top 2. But you can't play sloppy. You can't play not physical on the boards. And you cannot, and I mean cannot, lose these opportunities to score goals against a team like the Rangers and Igor Shesterkin.
Coming up here in a second, we're going to talk about exactly that, the play between the pipes, and whether or not this was a blip or a trend for one Vitek Vanacek, who is as critical as anything here. So we'll talk about potential adjustments going into game number 2, in between the pipes, on defense, and an offensive question that I want to ask Danny as well.